The LA Kings get ready to face some old friends as they return to the ice. That and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, also co-host of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the past 18 years, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. Well, the Kings left Los Angeles today to start another 5-game road trip, which will begin Friday in Winnipeg, where they'll face some old familiar faces. We'll get more into that in a minute. Before we preview that matchup and look back on an ill-fated trade between the two teams, the Kings and their captain, Anze Kopitar, as well as head coach Jim Hiller, did speak briefly to the media before they left on this most recent road trip to address, obviously, the horrible fires that have been going on in Los Angeles, resulting in the postponement of the Kings game that was to be played on Wednesday night. The Kings captain, Anze Kopitar, saying, quote, "In my 20 or 19 years here, I've never seen anything even remotely close. Yeah, there are fires, but not in a populated area where people are losing lives and losing houses and pretty much everything that they've worked for their entire life. Obviously, thoughts and prayers with everybody that has lost a loved one. It's extremely hard. Hopefully this gets under control fairly quickly," end quote. And head coach Jim Hiller was commenting on the first responders that are battling these fires and helping people out. He said, quote, "You see it, it's terrible, and then you see the people out there trying to help. They're doing their job. You have so much respect for those people. I'm not sure there hasn't been a lot of sleep for those guys. I was talking about that with my wife. They just go. It's pretty incredible. When the chips are down, they're the ones out there," end quote. So thoughts from Kings captain Anze Kopitar, head coach Jim Hiller, wanting to give their thoughts on what's going on, being asked about it by the media before they were leaving on the trip to Winnipeg, and thought I would share that with you guys. Obviously, these guys are hockey players. They have a job to do. Certainly is an odd, kind of feeling to be leaving kind of your family behind and your friends. I'm sure some people that they know that could be in tough situations, and you're off to go play hockey when there's bigger things going on in life. But life does go on. They've got a job to do, and the Kings are now on their way again to Winnipeg to take on the Jets tomorrow. Did want to thank Russell Morgan, friend of the show from Hockey Royalty, and another friend of the show, Zach Dooley, the Kings insider, for providing those quotes earlier today. So again, the season does go on, and the Kings will be in Winnipeg on Friday for a big challenge against one of the best teams in the NHL. We did want to preview that game a little bit. LA checking in with a 23-10-5 record, including a 12-2-2 stretch in their last 16 games. Kings are currently in third place in the Pacific Division. This is going into Thursday night's action. Third in the Pacific, fifth in the Western Conference, and ninth in the NHL with 51 points in 38 games. They are tied. The Kings are tied for the fewest games played in the NHL. Kings will have had almost a week off because of that postponed game on Wednesday against Calgary. Their last game was last Saturday, 2-1 win over Tampa Bay. Kings are riding a 4-game winning streak. They check in with a 9-8-4 road record so far this season. The team they're taking on, the Winnipeg Jets, a record of 28-12-2. They are the number one team in the Central Division. They are the second overall team in the Western Conference, behind only the Vegas Golden Knights, and the third team in the entire NHL as far as points go, with 58. That's in 42 games. Jets had an amazing start to the season, winning 8 in a row and then 15 of 16. As of late, hot and cold. The team had won 4 in a row and then immediately followed that up by losing 3 straight before winning their last game 5-2 at home against the Nashville Predators. That was on Tuesday night. Jets have lost 3 of their last 5, but at home, pretty tough. 15-4-2 on home ice so far this year. Kings, of course, we look at individuals led by their captain, Anze Kopitar, with 39 points on the season. Adrian Kempe's got 37 points, leads the team in goals with 19. Kevin Fiala is second with 14 goals. The Jets are led by Kyle Connor in points with 53. That is seventh most in the NHL. And Mark Scheifele is second on the team with 48 points. Both Connor and Scheifele are tied for the team lead when it comes to goals, each with 23 on the season. So the Kings have back-to-back games coming up, Friday in Winnipeg, Saturday in Calgary, with head coach Jim Hiller having to make a decision on who his goaltenders are going to be for those two games. Obviously going to use both goalies. Then you've got a big game coming up on Monday as well. It will remain to be seen whether Jim Hiller will go with number one goalie Darcy Kemper against the better of the two teams, which would be Winnipeg, and go with David Riddick, who did beat the Jets in the first meeting this year. Riddick, though, checking in with an 11-8 record, 2.55 goals against average, and 887 save percentage. Been great at home, not quite as good on the road. Darcy Kemper, meanwhile, on the season, 11-2-5, 2.23 goals against average, and a 920 save percentage. He's been outstanding since coming back from his latest injury with that 7-0-2 record. I would think with another game coming up so quickly, it doesn't make a lot of sense to go Riddick, Kemper, and then 2 days later, Kemper again against the Oilers, I don't think. Plus, I'm a big proponent of you play your number one goalie against the better of the two teams when you're playing back-to-back games. Now, Jim Hiller hasn't prescribed to that theory a few times this year, and I'm sure he has his reasons why. But if I'm the head coach, and I'm not, I would definitely go with David Riddick against the Jets on Friday. I'm sorry, rewind. Darcy Kemper against the Jets on Friday. David Riddick against the Flames on Saturday. And then, of course, Darcy Kemper ready to go against the Oilers on Monday. So we'll see if that's, in fact, what Kings head coach Jim Hiller decides to do. The Jets, not a lot of question who they're going to go with. That would be star goaltender Connor Hellebuyck. He is the leader at the halfway point of the NHL season to win the Vezina Trophy at the end of the year as the top goalie in the NHL. He's won it before. He is one of the clear elite goaltenders in the National Hockey League. Checks in with a record so far of 25, 6-2, 2.09 goals against average, and a 926 save percentage. All excellent numbers. He is first in the NHL in wins. He is first in the NHL in goals against average and second in save percentage. Also leads the league with 5 shutouts on the season. His last start was that 5-2 win in the Jets' last game against Nashville. He allowed 2 goals on 28 shots. However, he did take the loss in the earlier meeting against the Kings this season, allowing 3 goals on 32 shots. Checking the matchup by the numbers as far as from a team standpoint, the Kings check in 13th in the NHL in goals scored per game, 3.11. Winnipeg, third in the NHL, averaging 3.62 goals per game. The Kings are the number one team in the NHL in goals allowed per game. They're allowing 2.5 goals per game. The Jets are number 2, right behind the Kings. They're allowing 2.52 goals per game. The Kings' power play is 28th in the league, 16%. Winnipeg is number 1 in the NHL, 32% success rate on the power play. LA is 8th in the league on the penalty kill, 82.6%. Winnipeg 19th in the league on the PK at 78.1%. As far as some injury news for the LA Kings, we talked about this a little bit on the show on Wednesday. As I expected, defenseman Joel Edmondson is with the team for this 5-game road trip. Now, he missed practice on Monday, then was in a red non-contact jersey in practice on Tuesday. This was a result of that scary incident where he got undercut by a Lightning's player when he was jumping up for a puck, went head over heels and landed on his head. Head coach Jim Hiller said today that he was unsure if Edmondson would play on Friday. That, again, according to friend of the show, Russell Morgan of Hockey Royalty. The Kings did have a quick morning skate before leaving for Winnipeg. Edmondson was once again wearing the red non-contact jersey. Now, if Edmondson doesn't play, I would expect the Kings lineup defensively to see Jacob Moverare slide in on the left side in that second spot next to Brandt Clark. Kyle Burrows back after the birth of his child, back with the team. I would expect him to see him on the third pairing on the left side. And then if Jim Hiller wants to continue to go with the 11-7 setup, then you would see Andreas England as the extra defenseman. So we'll see if that is the case or not. As far as the forwards go, Trevor Moore coming back. The game against Tampa Bay played a lot on the second line. I expect to see him there, and I think Tanner Janot will probably be down on the fourth line. And we'll see if Jim Hiller decides to stick with that 11-7 setup. So this is the second meeting between the Jets and Kings this year. First meeting was November 27th, a 4-1 Kings victory. It was one of the biggest wins of the season at that point for the Kings, and it was the start of that stretch of 16 games where the Kings went 12-2-2. The first win in those 16 games was the win over the Winnipeg Jets. In that game, Andrei Kopitar scored the only goal of the first period. Philip Deneau followed it up with the next goal to make it 2-0. Former King Gabe Vilardi, we're going to talk more about in a second, scored to make it 2-1 heading into the third. Kevin Fiala made it 3-1 with a third period goal, and Adrian Kempe added the dagger with an empty net goal. In the victory, the Kings shut down the Jets, limiting them to 14 total shots in the game. David Rittich getting the win, making 13 saves in that victory. How about some keys to a win for the LA Kings? Number one, stay out of the box. The Kings PK has been really good of late, but let's not mess with this Jets number one ranked power play if we don't have to. Limit their chances by limiting the number of opportunities they had. So stay out of the penalty box. Number two, keep it close. The Kings have outscored their opponents in every period this season, but they get better as it goes along. So keep the game close in the first and second periods. Kings in the first period have outscored their opponents 28-22. In the second period, they've outscored their opponents 37-33. But in the third period, the Kings have outscored their opponents 52-36. We saw it on this last four-game homestand with the Kings outscoring their opponents 6-0 in the third period. So keep it close later in the game, and the Kings usually find a way to win the game late. And number three, keep it on the down low. The Kings do not want to get into a high-scoring game with a high-scoring Jets team. Try to keep, it 3-2, 3-1, something like that. Winnipeg leads the NHL with 152 goals scored this season. That's the most goals scored by any team in the league. The Kings lead the NHL in the fewest goals scored against in the NHL at 96. So obviously offense versus defense, a big key in this one. All right, with the Kings playing the Jets, hard not to think about a huge trade between the two teams a couple years ago. We'll revisit it next on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Hey, those of us here in Southern California, so lucky we have so many live events that we can check out. Of course, sports, but there's more than just sports. You've got theater events, concerts, and comedy shows. And when you check out these events, no matter where you live, you need to do what I do for your ticket needs, and that is use Gametime. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks. It makes getting tickets for live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. The all-in pricing feature shows you the total up front. You've got no surprises when you check out. And you can check out the vantage point from the seat you're going to buy with a panoramic view on the app before you buy it. You will get the lowest price guaranteed, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Take out the guesswork by buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, and redeem the code Locked On NHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. All right, with the Kings facing the Winnipeg Jets, hard not to think about that big trade between the two teams, June 27th of 2023, and think about how it looks now at this point. LA Kings GM Rob Blake swung a deal to pick up a player that was full of potential in 25-year-old Pierre-Luc Dubois, who was joining his third team in his young career. Heading the other way was young, talented, but somewhat injury-prone forward Gabe Vilardi, reliable forward Alex Iafallo, young player Rasmus Kupari, along with a second-round pick in 2024 the Kings got by trading away young defenseman Sean Durzi. Now, I said at the time, and I still believe in this general philosophy, I would rather have a GM be aggressive and take big swings in an effort to make my team be a contender or to improve my team, rather than play it safe, sit back, and just hope things work out, especially when you've got a team that had hadn't won a playoff series since winning the Cup in 2014. So playing it safe and just sitting back and hoping for the best, to me, wasn't exactly what I was thrilled about as a Kings fan. Now, taking a big swing is one thing. It's okay to be bold. It's okay to be aggressive, but you have to be smart about it as well. And Pierre-Luc Dubois wasn't exactly the guy, in my opinion, to take a big swing on. He was potentially a good player, but didn't seem like that's the guy that's going to take us to the next level. He hadn't done that anywhere else, and he was pretty much a malcontent in both Winnipeg and Columbus in his 2 stops before that. And that's the guy you're going to invest in long term by giving him an 8-year, $68 million deal. Big swings are one thing. Paying big money for a big player is one thing. But that guy, it just didn't seem like that was the guy to invest in. And at the time, I crossed my fingers and I understood where they were coming from. They wanted a big, young, talented, potentially talented center to make them formidable down the middle. It all sounded right, but he didn't seem like the right guy. And it turned out he wasn't. He was not a fit with the LA Kings, which we found out pretty quickly. And it turned out to be just a terrible trade. Pierre-Luc Dubois was pretty good in Columbus and Winnipeg. He was flat out mediocre as a member of the LA Kings. Now you can talk about who's to blame for that. Was there a disconnect between GM Rob Blake and head coach Todd McClellan as far as how Pierre-Luc Dubois should have been used? I think that's fair. Was there also a disconnect with Pierre-Luc Dubois and how he was being used and being unhappy with his role? And when you're in your first year with a new team and you're going to get paid a lot of money by that team, you would think you'd do anything you could to make it work. But it seemed like from his standpoint, it was like, well, I'm not being played where I need to be, where I want to be. And so it's on you. It's not on me. So it was a bad fit. It didn't work out. In the end, the Kings were fortunate that they were able to trade Pierre-Luc Dubois and his contract to the Washington Capitals and get goaltender Darcy Kuemper in return. So it's worked out so far. Darcy Kuemper's played extremely well as a member of the LA Kings. Pierre-Luc Dubois apparently is back on his career averages, which he was not going to meet when he was with the Kings, playing well enough for a Washington Capitals team that's in first place. They seem to be relatively happy with what he's given them. The team's doing well. He had a big game last night, scored 2 goals and an overtime game winner as well, and a victory over the Canucks. As for the Winnipeg Jets, they get Gabe Vilardi, they get Alex Iafallo, they get Rasmus Kupari, they get a second-round pick. So in the end, it was like the Kings got Darcy Kuemper and the Jets got 3 players and a draft pick that turned into a prospect. So look, Alex Iafallo, good player, liked him, but he's replaceable. Rasmus Kupari, I think, is just the guy. Sean Durzi, the Kings had a lot of young depth on defense, so he was expendable as well. So basically what the Kings gave up and what we're looking at now is Gabe Vilardi and that second-round draft pick. Now, the Jets used that pick on a Swedish defenseman. His name is Alphonse Frey. We'll see what he turns out to be. If he turns out to be a legit NHL player, that's certainly going to make this trade look even worse. Kind of when it's all said and done, Gabe Vilardi's the guy that you really look at. And when you see what he's doing with the Winnipeg Jets, when you see his age, when you see what he's being paid, it's obviously makes that trade look even worse. And I know that Gabe Vilardi was a guy that was kind of injury prone, but he's been relatively injury free so far. He's missed a few games, but this year he's been really good. 25 years old, 19 goals and 37 points so far this season for the Jets. He's making $3.43 million, and he's a restricted free agent after this season. So for the Kings, I mean, Darcy Kuemper, he's 34. He's signed for 2 more years, $5.25 million. So the Jets are getting a really good young player at a really good price, and they're going to have him for, it looks like, many, many years to come. Whereas Darcy Kuemper, hopefully he's got a couple more good years left in him, but we'll have to wait and see. And when you look at what the Kings are lacking right now, power play producer and a right-handed shot in their top 6, That's Gabe Vilardi. Gabe Vilardi has 10 power play goals this season. You know how many the Kings have as a team? 15. So when you look at it from that standpoint, I know we can all kind of look and say, well, in the end, we got Kemper, the Capitals got PLD, and basically the Jets got the Vilardi and maybe a prospect. But obviously, it's what Vilardi is doing now, his age, his price, how he's producing, what he's producing, and how he fits in with the Jets and where he could fit in when you think about it with the LA Kings. So all in all, hard not to look back on that deal and think, yeah, that's a pretty bad deal. Now, I don't think Rob Blake is as bad as it seems like a lot of Kings fans think that he is. I don't think he's done as horrible a job, but there's no way to sugarcoat that decision and that move. I want my GMs to be aggressive. I like, generally speaking, for them to, be bold, but I think you also, if you're gonna take that big swing, you better make contact, because if you swing and miss, that can set you back. The Kings have been able to kind of deal with it and be okay in the moment. It hasn't hurt them as much now as it could. Down the road, though, it could be a trade that you really look back on and say, man, now how do we decide to do that? But certainly a cautionary tale. Is Rob Blake's job on the line because of that trade alone? I think when you couple that with the fact that the Kings have not won a playoff series in his tenure as general manager, and you couple this decision, and look, to be fair, throw in what Rob Blake did this offseason, which none of us were all that excited about, turned out to be some great pieces that fit what the Kings are trying to do. And it's working out so far. So he does deserve credit for that. But again, that was a swing and a miss. The Kings' lack of playoff success certainly is on him as well. In as far as that, he can only do so much. He can't play the game, but he's put the team together. So we'll see how it plays out. He's in the final year of his contract, as most of you probably know, and another first-round exit certainly seems like that would be the end of his tenure as general manager. But we shall see. But again, every time the Kings and Jets get together, and you see Gabe Vilardi out there producing, and hopefully he doesn't produce against us on Friday, it's hard not to think about that trade and what happened. All right, up next, we're going to tell you about an honor for an Ontario Reign standout. That is next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. The NFL playoffs are almost here, and it's time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. Not only can you bet on who will win the game, but FanDuel also lets you place bets on which players are going to score a touchdown, how many points the teams are going to score, and so much more. Both of LA's NFL teams are in action coming up in the next few days. Chargers are in Houston to face the Texans on Saturday. Chargers are 2.5-point road favorites. Over-under in that game is 42.5. And the Rams, did you hear? Their playoff game has been moved to Arizona because of the fires. I'm not sure how that's going to affect the betting lines. Obviously, no home field advantage for the Rams, and they were already home underdogs, as it were. They were plus 1.5 against the Minnesota Vikings. Over-under set at 47.5. So very interesting to see how the Rams can handle that. Obviously, that sucks if you're a Rams fan. A home playoff game moved out of state, but under the circumstances, you can certainly understand why they made the decision as well. But that's a topic for another show. Visit FanDuel.com and join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, the Kings did not play Wednesday night, but their American Hockey League affiliate, the Ontario Reign, did play, and they beat the Henderson Silver Knights in Nevada 2-1 in overtime. Cole Krieger tied the game in the first period with his first goal of the season. Then after a scoreless second and third periods, Samuel Fagemo scored the game winner in overtime, his 10th of the season. Eric Portillo got the win in net, allowing 1 goal on 23 shots. He's now 10-3-1 on the season, 2.47 goals against average, and a .910 save percentage. The Reign are 29-1 on the season, and they have a 10-1-1 record in their last 11 games. Told you Samuel Fagemo got the overtime game winner. He also found out before the game that he has been selected as an AHL All-Star. He's going to play in the AHL All-Star game He currently sits third in the American Hockey League in goals scored with 19, trailing somebody named Ethan Frank of the Hershey Bears and Rory Kearns of the Calgary Wranglers. Fagemo kind of seems to be Arthur Kaliyev 2.0. Fagemo was also a second-round pick. Matter of fact, he and Kaliyev were picked the same year, both second-round picks in 2019. Fagemo was 17 picks after Kaliyev, who I believe was the 33rd overall pick. Fagemo, similar in size, 6 foot, 200 pounds. Kaliyev, 6'2", 210. Fagemo's 24, Kaliyev's 23. Both clearly have a good scoring touch, but both also still seem to lack other intangibles. Clearly, goal scoring is important, but unless you can really do it at a high level in the NHL, you're going to be on a third or fourth line. And if you just got some scoring touch and not much else, not much of a chance for you to be an impact player at the NHL level. Now, if the Kings were hit hard by injuries, maybe Fagemo could get his chance and show what he could do. But as it stands right now, unfortunately for Samuel Fagemo, looks like he's kind of one of those players, kind of like Arthur Kaliyev, just doesn't seem to have a fit right now with the LA Kings. Maybe something changes in the near future, but again, very talented guy. As far as scoring at the AHL level, hasn't really translated to the NHL level at this point, but was named an AHL All-Star and is having a good season again with the Ontario Reign. So congratulations to Samuel Fagemo. By the way, I did see Arthur Kaliyev made his Rangers debut Thursday night. No points, played on the third line, played 8 minutes, 31 seconds, did not play on the Rangers power play. Also, Jonathan Quick still stuck on 399 wins. He did not get the start for the Rangers in their 3-2 win over the Devils. So the Kings are out of town for a while. If you need your local hockey fix, the Ontario Reign are playing on Friday and Sunday, both times at home as they are hosting the Iowa Wild. For you everydayers, those of you that listen to watch Locked On Kings every day, busy show on Friday. We are going to recap the Kings-Jets game shortly after the conclusion and also fit in our weekly Kings fan feedback show. So a jam-packed show on Friday. We'll recap the Kings-Jets game and then have your emails as well. If you still want to get in on that, the email address is lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE. And you can always leave your comments on the YouTube channel if you're watching there. Also, stay interactive with the show on social media, X, Twitter, Instagram. We're at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you, as always, for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you tomorrow. And as always, go Kings, go.